My name is Sanet Oosthuizen and I love people and I love their stories. And that's why it's such a privilege to be visiting in Romien's house today, surrounded by these beautiful artworks, which we're going to talk about in a little while. Thank you for having me here, Romien.
Pleasure, thank you for being here.
We're talking about Romien's book today, Silent Thunder, A Journey of Grace with a Rare Tumour. And what a better way to get started than reading from the book. I'm reading from the foreword. I instantly knew this was a journey I had to be on and that it would be part of me for the rest of my life. I knew that God would use my struggles to help others. Therefore, I was willing and eager in a strange way to go through this, and that one day I could tell my story, which would become part of someone else's survival. On what I thought would be another perfectly ordinary day, I received the news that I had a very rare tumour inside my spinal cord, which could eventually leave me paralyzed, even if treated. The tumour was a ticking time bomb, needing urgent, life-threatening, life-changing surgery. Up to now, I led a perfectly normal and healthy life. I grew up on a grape farm in the Montetjie district in South Africa. My mother was a school teacher before she became a farmer's wife, and my father was born a farmer with generations of farmers in his ancestry. After completing high school, I went to university and studied human resources management. Later in life, I added a financial management degree to the pot and landed management positions at high-profile companies at an early age, and a high-profile job as head of corporate governance and finance at an international pharmaceutical company. I loved my job. It was so rewarding and stimulating. I was happy, a career woman, and I could never imagine doing anything else. Not for 1 minute did I ever think that this could all end and that I would be an incomplete paraplegic a few years later. Romien, you were diagnosed a few years ago with a very rare tumour that paralyzes your legs, and today you are an incomplete paraplegic as a result. Tell us more about your journey.
It started, like you mentioned, with finally, after a very long time of trying to find out what's wrong with me, with this diagnosis that there's a tumour inside my spinal cord. Just to elaborate on the rareness, if 1 in a million people are diagnosed with a tumour inside of the spinal cord, so if South Africa has 60 million people, then it means that 60 people in South Africa have a tumour like this. So it is very rare. Finally, after diagnosis, the neurosurgeon said to me that I have 2 options. We can leave the tumour, not do anything, but then it's going to paralyze me from the neck down, and I would be a quadriplegic. Or we can try and remove this tumour, which is a very high-risk surgery. And if the surgery is not a success, it can also paralyze me from the neck down. So in the beginning, I remember, to me it was quite unfair that anybody should make a decision like that about their own life. But fast forward, we then made the decision to have the surgery. The surgeon said if the surgery is a success, at least you would have the use of your arms. And that would be a bonus versus the other option to leave it and be guaranteed a quadriplegic, and we didn't know how much time I had before that would happen, because it was pressing so tightly on my on the nerves in my spinal cord. I remember asking the doctor that how will I know after surgery if the surgery is a success, and he said, if you can only move your toes after surgery, we know that you will be able to learn to walk again. Obviously, I will walk with aid, but I will have that function. And shortly after surgery, it was the first thing I wanted to know, and I could move just my toes very slightly. So I was paralyzed at that minute from my chest down to my feet. I still cannot feel from the chest down to my feet. So if I close my eyes and you touch, I won't be able to feel, but I can move my legs and I can move my feet. So the physios could work with me, and that's where I am today. I'm an incomplete paraplegic. I cannot feel my legs, I can move them, I can walk wobbly and with aid, but at least I have that.
Okay, let's jump to a piece in your book, and it's on page 88, where you write, "I am happy and content. I have so much to be grateful for, and I can still do a lot, although differently." What amazes me, Romien, is how positive and how hopeful you have been right through this whole journey. How did you manage that?
To me, that was actually very easy. I just realized how much I have to be grateful for, and also God showed me and still shows me every day how much I have to be grateful for. I mean, like we discussed, I could have been a quadriplegic, but I'm only an incomplete paraplegic, so I can still do so many things. And to have that gratefulness in your life and that realization that things could have been a lot worse, that sort of, how can I be negative if I have that in my life? Yes.
Let's talk about your faith walk. How was that affected?
Okay. Well, let me say this. It makes things a little bit easier if you have something to hold on to. To me, it started with the devastation of the diagnosis, and just to give you a little bit of background, I have two daughters, and their father passed when they were very small. And we always had the conversation that one day when you get married, mommy is going to walk you down the aisle. And when we received this diagnosis, we were uncertain, would that be able to happen? And after a few days, I just decided that I am not prepared to settle for less. But then I thought it's very arrogant of anybody to say that, and I thought, God would think that I'm very arrogant to say I'm not going to settle for less. I am going to walk these two girls down the aisle. But then I spoke to a friend of mine who is a pastor, and he reminded me of other people in the Bible, Bartimaeus, who was the blind man in Mark, I think it's Mark 10, where it's written about him, and he asked to be able to see, and his wish was granted, and he was able to see. And also in 2 Kings, where it's referring to Ezekiel, and he was facing death, and he asked that his life be prolonged, and he was added 15 years to his life. So then I just realized, that we are allowed to ask what it is that we want. And that was what I asked. I asked that I'll be able to walk my daughters down the aisle. I didn't ask that it must look graceful or, that it must be a perfect walk. I just asked that I be able to walk them down the aisle. So that was sort of my motivation. That doesn't mean, the fact that I believe that you can ask, and if it's good for you, that which might be granted to you, that doesn't mean that it was an easy recovery and an easy journey that I had. So there were certain milestones in the recovery process, and miracles that happened within that. I'm thinking of quite early on. So after surgery, when I woke up, the only thing that I could use from my chest down to my feet, like I explained, was I could only move my toes. So the physios wanted me to sit up in bed, and every day we've tried that. And when they get me, they help me up, and when they sort of want me to do it on my own, I just fell down in bed. And on day 7, after trying every day for several times, day 7 also, I cannot remember how many times it was we tried that day, but then all of a sudden when they got me up, I could sit up without assistance. It felt wobbly, like sitting on a water bed, but still I could do it, and I could stay up for a little while. And the fissures helped me to swing my legs to the side of the bed. So I was sitting on the bed with my feet hanging down the bed. And what I didn't realize at that time, while doing that, a friend of mine in Cape Town was praying for me. And after the physios, we did a physio session, I received this message from her, and I want to read what she said in the book. So she sent me this message, and it says, "Dear Romien, while praying for you this morning, I had a vision of you sitting on a high hospital bed with your legs hanging off the side. Your hands are at your sides, pressing on the bed, swinging your legs back and forth, but you still cannot walk. And then I received James 5 verse 15. And then when I went to my Bible and I read James 5 verse 15, it says, "And a prayer offered in faith will restore the one who is sick. The Lord will raise him up." So I believe that the fact that she was also praying for me while the physios was working with me was part of the reason why at that minute I finally was able to do that. So quite a few miracles happened during the recovery process that sort of strengthened my faith.
Your story is written in the book Silent Thunder, A Journey of Grace with a Rare Tumour. How did the journey of writing this book occur? How did it start?
Like I mentioned earlier, it was quite difficult for the doctors to diagnose what was wrong with me because it's so rare. So to assist the doctors in giving them the correct information and for them to be able to diagnose me, I started to keep a diary every day of how I felt, what I went through, what I was feeling, which parts of my legs or my body felt numb or tingling. So, and then afterwards, after the diagnosis and through the whole hospitalization and recovery process, I was already in a habit, and I continued with making these short notes on a daily or almost a daily basis. And then eventually I thought, when I was diagnosed, it was difficult to find information because it's rare. And I wanted to write this in a more readable, all the cryptic notes in a more readable format to distribute to whoever is interested in having this information. So that's the one thing, I was already in that sort of habit of making notes and writing. And then also 2 Corinthians 1 verse 3, where it says, "I encourage you in order to, so that you would be able to encourage others." So that was also a very big reason for finally getting to write my story.
The title of the book is a very dramatic title, Silent Thunder, and the story behind it is absolutely precious. Please share it with us.
Okay, so the cover of the book, this photograph of thunder and lightning, was taken the evening before my diagnosis. So we travelled from Nelspruit to Pretoria to see a specialist there. And because photography is one of my hobbies, I always wanted to take a photo of the Union buildings in Pretoria because it's beautifully lit at night. And I wanted to take that photograph. And that evening, all I could see was the thunder and the lightning over the city. And I took that photo, and this is the photo that was taken the evening before my diagnosis. At the time, it was just because I love photography and it was a beautiful scene. The next day I was diagnosed, and we travelled back the afternoon from Pretoria to Nelspruit. And while we travelled through the Schoemanskloof, there was lightning and thunder. When it's like a symphony, it's in front of you and at the sides and at the back, and it's just all over. And it was actually so beautiful and so dramatic, and it's a scene I will never forget, together with the scene of the previous night. And somehow I knew that the thunder was playing a role or speaking to me, but at the time I didn't know what exactly it was. So that evening we arrived home, and my oldest daughter Madeleine, who didn't know about the diagnosis as yet, sent me a quote, and the quote said, "Not all storms come to disrupt your life, some come to clear your path." And that immediately was very special and precious to me, and I kept that with me the whole time. fast forward, I was in hospital 106 days, and after that the recovery still continued because I wasn't still not to a point where I could just walk with my aid. I was still in the process, and eventually I got up to a point where I am now, where I can walk with aid. And at the time, my youngest daughter got married first in 2019, and when she got married, I could walk her down the aisle with aid, but my wish was granted. So to me, that's the reason why Silent Thunder, why the word thunder is part of the title of the book, because of the role that the thunder played. And then when Tarim got married, shortly after the ceremony, there was again lightning in the sky, and the photographer took a beautiful photo of them as newlyweds with the thunder in the back in the sky, which is also published in the book. So that's the reason for the title Silent Thunder. And with that goes Psalm 77, which carried me through in this whole period where God's voice is compared to the thunder, and how mighty the thunder is and how mighty his voice is. So that all sort of came full circle to me, and that's why I couldn't do any other title but have the word thunder in it.
Let's read from the book again. Page 85, you write, "Since my recovery I walk funny, and my husband's favorite new saying is, I love it when you walk foreign. It puts a smile on my face every time." Certainly made me smile when I read that. But you regularly refer to this new normal right through the book. Tell us more about new normal and what does it mean?
Yes, basically it means to try and do the same things that I did before but differently. One example is my car was changed to a hand drive, that I don't use my feet. So it's a quadriplegic drive, which I'm very grateful for, because then it means I can still have that independence to drive my own car. Just don't use my legs because I can't feel them. When it comes to hobbies, like I've mentioned before, photography is one of my hobbies, and I still do that. What I used to do was to do landscape photography, and that's entitled to get up very early in the morning and walk into the mountains and get to a point where you set up the camera, waiting for the scene, for that sun to rise, to capture that perfect moment. I cannot do that anymore, but I can do other genres of photography. I can do macro photography, or we love to go to the Kruger Park and drive through the park, and I can take photos of the animals through the window of the car. Painting is another hobby of mine. I always said that once I retire, I used to travel a lot for my work, and I always took my camera with me, and I took a lot of photos, especially people fascinates me. And I always said once retired, I'm going to paint a face out of each country that I've ever been. Retirement came sooner for me now because of my illness, and now I can spend time on that hobby. So I have a full and happy life. I still can do most of the things that I did before, but differently.
You cover a lot of medical aspects in your book as well, but I think one question that many viewers might already be wondering about is, Romien, how is it possible for you to walk if you cannot feel from your chest down?
Yes, it's a question I get asked often, and it's a difficult concept to grasp. But what happens is the spinal cord is like a sausage, and for the doctors to be able to get inside the spinal cord to where the tumour was, they had to cut through the front of the cord where the sensation nerves is. So we knew beforehand that I would lose the sensation from the spot in the spinal cord, which was C6, sort of higher up in the middle of the back. We knew that I would lose sensation from that spot down to my feet, although I had no idea what it meant. You know, when they say you're going to lose sensation, I had no idea. So because they had to cut through the sensation nerves, I lost the sensation. Also around the spinal cord is your coordination is on the left and the right, and at the back is your movement. So the sensation was lost, the coordination was damaged, and the movement was damaged, but it wasn't cut. So the signal still goes through to a certain extent, and that's why the physios could work with me, and I could learn to walk with aid. The one thing is, to be able to walk, you need your balance, you need your eyesight, and you need the movement. So because and sensation. So because I've lost the sensation, I compensate. I have to be able to see my feet, otherwise I cannot walk, because I wouldn't know where in space they are. I would step wrong, and it's a high risk to fall. So as long as I can see my feet, I can walk with aid. So I cannot, it's impossible for me to step backwards, because then I can't see my feet and I might fall. I also cannot walk when it's dark, for example. The light needs to be on, otherwise I don't know where I am in space. If I stand upright and I close my eyes, I don't have an idea where in space I am, because I only can feel from here up.
Through your journey, I'm sure that you learned a good couple of life lessons, and reading through the book, those are wonderful to be reminded of again as you read through. But maybe just share some of the life lessons that you've learned.
Yeah. Well, one of the most important ones would definitely be that I've learned to appreciate the very small things in life. I remember right after I've been diagnosed and all of these thoughts was going through my head, I was in the kitchen one day and I was washing my hands, and I burst out in tears because for 1 minute I realized that I might not be able to ever again feel water on my hands. Something as simple as that, which we take for granted, but for me those small little things became crucial things to either try and remember, or either have the ability afterwards to maybe be fortunate enough to do them again. So appreciate the small things in life. The other thing is appreciate the people in your life, because it's a given that when your normal change, that some people might exit your life. So appreciate the people who stay in your life and who walk this journey with you and who support you. I had wonderful people and still have wonderful people in my life, my husband, my children, some family members, some friends. But I've also lost friends along the way, but that gives me a greater appreciation for the people still in my life. The other lesson that I've learned and that I walk by every day is keep moving. If you keep moving, the cancer or the tumour or the illness, or if it's unemployment or whatever it is that you're battling, if you keep moving, it won't be able to catch up with you. So keep moving in gaining knowledge of your illness, keep moving in your relationships, keep moving in your faith, keep moving in searching for that job. If it's unemployment that you're faced with, just keep moving.
We're talking about Romien's book, Silent Thunder, A Journey of Grace with a Rare Tumour. Romien, where can people get hold of this book?
It was very important to me that people would be, anyone who is interested must be able to get hold of this book. So it's available as a free downloadable ebook on my website, which is Romien Van Zyl Wait. It's also on the bottom of the screen displayed on this video, so it's easy to just go to that website. So you can either download a free ebook, or if you like Sonette over here, who like to have the physical copy of the hard copy of the book in her hand and read that, you can also order a hard copy. So there's two options available. The one is a full color, where the cover and the inside photos all in color, and then there's a more economic copy, which is a colored cover, but the inside is black and white.
Thank you, Romien. I loved your honesty, I loved your vulnerability while reading the book, and I loved the pictures of your friends and your family as we read through it. And thank you for reminding us what powerful medicine thankfulness is every day. I'm honored to have been part of this book discussion and your book launch, and thank you for welcoming me in your house as well. It's been a privilege.
Thank you so much.